growing up as a person who was in the left my whole life, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Same. I mean, I was on the left until like 3 years ago. Like, I mean, you know,
it's not the left anymore.
It's not the left anymore. Yeah. This is the weird thing. It's like the left used to be big on exposing government corruption, but once they control the government, they no longer want to expose the government corruption.
大家好，文华村里的苏小姐。这期我们继续盘点特朗普新内阁成员的背景和他们过去曾经碾压左派的高能瞬间。这期我们盘点的是 Elon Musk.
Like basically, we want to send a message to the politicians to say that the people care about the Constitution because there've been all these attacks on the Constitution. They've been, especially on the Democrat side, they've been repeatedly saying that the First Amendment is an obstacle. And they're claiming, oh, the First Amendment is enabling disinformation, misinformation. And I'm like, yo, there's a reason for the First Amendment. Like freedom of speech, the reason the founders of the country put, you know, the freedom of speech there is because they came from countries where if you spoke your mind, you would get shot or imprisoned. That's why the First Amendment exists. And the Second Amendment is there to stop the tyranny of government. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, is there to protect. You know, and I've had these debates, especially with people in LA, because they're like, want to take everyone's guns away. And I'm like, yo, can you guarantee me that the government, that we will never have a tyrannical government in the United States? Can you make that guarantee? They're like, well, nobody can make that guarantee. I'm like, then we need to keep our guns, because that's what's going to stop it.
That sounds crazy for people to hear because they think about gun violence and gun problems and gun this and gun that, but that's the reality of the world that we live in, is that tyranny is possible and it exists other places and it's slowly existing. It's slowly rearing its head in the UK. I think the number of people that have been arrested for just social media posts is bananas. It's in the thousands.
Yes, several thousand people have been given prison sentences in the UK for social media posts where there was no explicit link to actual violence. But they just said it encouraged violence. I'm like, well, did anyone actually do anything as a result of that? And then they have a prison overcrowding situation in the UK, so that quite literally releasing convicted pedophiles and putting people in jail for Facebook posts. That's an actual thing happening in Britain.
That is so wild.
Like you're like,
it's so wild that people can't see that.
What the fuck, you know, is going on?
And what's insane to me
is
oil
fiction again.
Yeah,
you know.
But it's all being encouraged by the left. Ketanji Brown Jackson, John Kerry, Hillary Clinton.
John Kerry was one of the people who said that he's on camera like a few weeks ago saying that the First Amendment is an obstacle to fighting misinformation.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's such a crazy thing to say when you have a solution in community.
You can reply to a post and with evidence that shows that the post is wrong. You can say, here's why you're wrong, here are the reasons, and here's the evidence.
But the argument is that people are too unsophisticated, that they're not going to research these things. They're going to be a victim of misinformation. So they're going to read something that's incorrect. They're going to run with it. People are going to die. We're going to ruin the world because people believed in misinformation. It's a stupid argument.
It's a stupid argument.
Because it's an argument that they're too dumb to know what's right or wrong. Well,
yes.
If you know, because you're saying it's misinformation, why do you think that you're smarter than everybody who reads that?
Exactly. You know, some broadcast media, they say false things all the time, but it's a one-way street. There's no rebuttal. There's no counter.
Right.
You know?
Right. Who's apologized for being incorrect about what? Did Rachel Maddow ever apologize for telling everybody that if you get the COVID vaccine, you're never going to get COVID? It won't. The virus stops with you.
No, never.
Never.
Yeah.
No one ever. It's just. It was not true at the time. There was no evidence to support it at the time. It's pure propaganda. And she said it. The Russiagate hoax. For 3 fucking years, they said that he was Putin's toy, and there's no repercussions.
Yes.
No one had to apologize. Hillary Clinton never came out and apologized for that, and people still listen to her. The whole thing is crazy. And it's all coming from the left, which, growing up as a person who was in the left my whole life, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Same. I mean, I was on the left until like 3 years ago. Like, I mean, I believe like we want freedom. We want to maximize personal liberty. I think we want to be kind to people. You know, we want to have empathy. But it's very important to have personal freedom and a merit-based society. And the left wants to oppress your freedoms, especially freedom of speech, and they want to have a non-merit-based society. with race-based and sex-based preferences. And it's like, well, wait a second. No, we just want people to succeed based on their skills and their hard work.
And if they don't want people to express themselves about particular issues, then they're not doing the will of the people. And if they're trying to suppress people's ability to communicate, they're only doing that because they want to do things that people don't want them to do.
Yes.
And they want to silence opposition. That's all it is. And the
100%.
fact that people can't see that and they want to call Trump a fascist, the whole thing is
it's just
through the looking glass. It's just,
I mean, it's like one hoax after another that they're perpetrating against Trump. I mean, like they try to call the rally at Madison Square Gardens like a Nazi rally. I'm like, yo, there was like literally an Israeli flag in the audience. I think like a quarter of the speakers were Jewish. Like there were people of every race, color, creed, religion at that rally. Like, tell me what about that is Nazi?
No,
and yet it was portrayed as a Nazi rally.
Well, MSNBC, they literally showed video of the Nazi rally from the 1930s and then compared it to the Trump rally. Now, ignoring the fact that fucking Jimmy Carter spoke there.
There have been dozens of political rallies at Madison Square Gardens, dozens on the Democrat side. Like people on X were like, and here's Jimmy Carter, and here's
at a Nazi
Bill
rally,
Clinton, and here's wait a second. Actually, it looks like every presidential candidate has done on the Democrat side has done a rally at Madison Square Gardens. Are they Nazis too?
But what they're doing is they're preying on low information voters who aren't engaged actively on social media, who don't have the time to look through everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If people are just on looking at legacy mainstream media, then they have a totally different worldview than if they're on X and seeing the actual flow of argument.
Yes.
And the actual evidence.
When we found out that was the case, that the government was actually asking Twitter to remove posts that were factual,
all the time.
They did the same thing to Facebook. They had them throttle pieces of one of Tucker Carlson's show. They suppressed the views by 50%.
Yeah. There was massive government interference in Twitter, but like Twitter welcomed it. That's important to all Twitter welcomed it. All Twitter was controlled by far left activists.
Yeah.
So they welcomed the government interference. They got paid by the government for it.
That's crazy. They got paid for their time, correct?
Yeah, they got paid millions of dollars for suppressing information. FBI had this sort of magic portal into the Twitter system, but all of the communication in this portal was auto deleted after 2 weeks, which breaks federal FOIA laws. So we don't even know what was said because it was all deleted after 2 weeks.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's so crazy. It's so crazy that people thought that was okay.
It's super not okay.
No, it's super not okay. It's unconstitutional, and no one would want that. No one would want the government to have that kind of access.
Exactly.
And what was the blowback like when all that stuff got released? Like, you had to anticipate that there was going to be problems when you released that. Like, what happened?
We did lose a lot of advertising dollars. Which
is crazy, because it's essentially like one of the most important forms of journalism is exposing government corruption.
Yes, I mean, this is the weird thing. It's like the left used to be big on exposing government corruption, but once they control the government, they no longer want to expose the government corruption. As you pointed out, like the left, historically, up until, I don't know, maybe even 10 years ago or something like that, was the free speech party, and now it's the anti-free speech party, and they use words like, oh, well, we have to be against hate speech and misinformation, disinformation. But these are propaganda words. It's like, well, who's defining hate speech? Who's defining misinformation? The government? Do you really trust the government to make that definition? The whole point of the First Amendment is like, you do not trust the government.
Well, especially when they're wrong, and there's no repercussions.
Yes.
Yeah, like with the whole lab leak theory, you would get kicked off of YouTube if you even presented this argument that, hey, maybe that coronavirus lab where they're doing work on the exact same virus that got released.
Yep.
Hey, maybe that's where it came from, since that's where the virus started. What do you think, guys?
Yeah.
They kick you right off of YouTube.
Yeah.
伊隆马斯克是一个南非的移民，他是1971年出生于南非，他妈妈是加拿大人。我觉得他是改写了人类近代史的这么一个人物。先不说特斯拉是电车这种东西，咱就说 SpaceX 一个商业来发送火箭载人航天，整个世界包括美国的政府都没有办法独立实现这个事儿，但是伊隆马斯克可以做到。你说这是多么不容易和伟大的一件事。在他选择站在特朗普这一阵线上的时候，很多人还会说他就是 想要当官儿，为了那个一官半职，想要在特朗普那个谋一份职位。我想说，这是什么神奇的脑回路？他是世界首富好吗？特朗普当了几年总统，财富巨额缩水。你觉得伊隆马斯克他有这么多企业这么忙，他闲的没事去混个政府职位能挣多少钱？真的，以伊隆马斯克的身份是政客需要巴结他，是他给政客捐钱。他跟特朗普一样，都是那种已经家财万贯，而且他是个对物质没有追求的人。你看那些比尔盖茨、贝索斯那些富豪，他们有了钱之后会买那个游艇、买豪宅。伊隆马斯克有什么？他每天只埋头工作，你看过他穿什么名牌吗？他的生活非常简单，曾经就是在公司旁边有一个移动的那种集装箱式的房子，就几十平的那种，他就住在里面。他只是有地方睡觉就行了，他只想工作，这是他实现自我价值的地方。对财富并没有什么追求，不是说追求金钱有什么错误，你可以追求金钱，但你不要把你自己的追求和认知嫁接到别人上，觉得谁都跟您一样。你看他当时买 Twitter， 就是买那个 Twitter 的时候，这不是个好的生意，他是多花了很多钱，赔钱买的 Twitter， 但他为什么要买下？因为他看不惯 Twitter 上面没有言论自由，言论自由正在丧失，正在被瓦解。他曾经也是民主党人，也是左派，就是他为什么跟特朗普站队了？为什么要变成一个坚定的共和党人？因为他看到了种种发生在美国的这些事情，他认为如果美国再继续这么下去，继续一路往左开的话，这个国家的民主自由，这个国家的立国之本将不复存在。这就是为什么他选择了跟特朗普站队，跟另一位美国的企业家一起负责美国的政府效率部啊。因为左派喜欢吃大政府，右派喜欢小政府，就是把权力放给人民。他们都认为这个美国政府啊，这个官僚体系过于庞大，是没有意义、没有效率的，只会剥夺老百姓的权利，所以他们想要大刀阔斧的把这些冗余的部分给砍掉，所以他们干的这个事儿也会触犯很大的利益集团，动了很多人的蛋糕，可以说是非常拉仇恨的一个部门。然后我们衷心的祝愿他们安好，人身安全，上帝保佑。那些脑回路奇特的左派说这个是马斯克花钱换的权利，哎，我只能说，第一，马斯克不需要这个权利；第二，马斯克不需要这个钱，应该是美国人民，特朗普感谢马斯克 do this favor， 帮这个忙，做慈善，帮美国人民解决这个问题。马斯克做这些是为了美国好。当然了，美国好也就意味着他会更好，他可以在这片沃土上有更多的创造，实现更多他追求的自我价值。我不是说他里边没有任何自私的成分，因为他也最终想要实现他的自我价值。但每个人的自我价值实现的前提都是这片沃土能够让我这个种子孕育发芽。如果这片土壤都废掉了，那我们没有一个人可以成功。我觉得这就是马斯克为什么在今年大选这么拼尽全力的支持特朗普，这么拼尽全力的参与政治的原因。他自己都说过，他以前从来不这么积极的参与政治，他没有兴趣，他有很多事情要忙，但是他现在觉得这个是对美国人，其中就包括他生死攸关的一件事情。之前我也有翻译过2期啊，也是有一系列的版权问题，有兴趣的朋友可以去往期视频里面看。那这期希望也能通过版权审核，能够顺利发出来。我发现所有这些移民就会更加格外珍惜美国的民主自由，美国人自己反而不珍惜出生在这儿的尤其是那些左派吧，他们都没有经历过社会主义，没有经历过共产主义，所以他们都非常支持和喜欢这些东西，看不上资本主义。但是所有的移民到这个国家，尤其是经历过社会主义、共产主义的，都拼命的想要保护美国资本主义、美国的立国之本，这就是差异所在啊！好，感谢您收看这期视频。翻译是一件非常辛苦的工作，如果您喜欢的话，欢迎您踊跃点赞打赏。那如果您是新朋友呢，也欢迎您点击订阅，打开小铃铛，就不会错过未来的新视频了。好，这期视频就录到这儿，感谢看到视频最后的您，下期再会啦，拜拜。